Good morning. So nice to have you watching 3+U today. As you can tell, we are not in the studio. We are taking advantage of some end of summer fun before the fall season kicks into high gear, giving you a sneak peek in some fun things you can enjoy this fall season. So we are back at the Cherokee National Forest, about to hop on board the Hiwassee River Scenic Railroad to take you on a fantastic glimpse of some fall fun. So as they say at any good railroad,
all aboard!
And we have climbed on board and we are in the lap of luxury. Robert Duncan has kindly invited us onto his beautiful train. We are in the Algonquin car, is that right?
Algonquin Park, yes ma'am.
This is a beautiful spot. We're kind of in the lap of luxury because all around us, Robert, as people are enjoying this beautiful ride that we'll talk about, is nothing but the scenery in this domed car.
Yes ma'am. The scenery of the Cherokee National Forest is what we really push on this car. You see everything that you get, the mountain scenery, you can see the river scenery, so it's all great. And it's not uncommon to pass by a tree and see a bald eagle sitting up in the tree.
And you are literally, because we are up
eye to eye with the bald eagles.
I think that the history of this loop is so fascinating to me. I've told you multiple times in our conversation this morning that I am truly in over my head.
Yes.
But that's okay. You're the one to educate me. These tracks are 132 years old?
Yes, ma'am. These tracks, the idea for this whole railroad was the city leaders of Knoxville. They wanted to do a straight route to Atlanta. Before this route was built, you had to ship your freight through Chattanooga and then on to Atlanta.
Okay.
So they came up with the idea of building a straight route, and they contracted with two different railroads in 1885, the Knoxville Southern and the Marietta and North Georgia.
Okay.
The Knoxville Southern started in Knoxville, worked their way south. The Marietta and North Georgia had already worked their way up to Canton, Georgia, and they worked their way north. And they met in an area that we go through called Appalachia Station.
You talk about this direct route between the two cities, yet the very nature of the loop, I always thought that it was a turnaround spot for the train. That's incorrect.
No, that's incorrect. What the loop does is gains altitude up a mountain. Imagine a spiral going up the mountain at a fairly steep grade, and that's how they got around that mountain. Originally, they had a series of switchbacks up the mountain,
right,
which meant the train could only carry a certain amount of cars with them, and they literally had to zigzag back and forth up the mountain, and that was a terribly slow way to get a train up the mountain.
You are a mass of information, and I know that you know that. You've been part of the railroad for 18 years.
Yes, ma'am.
When people come and they buy a ticket, do they have a chance to hear some of this history from you?
We do a narration along the way. We do the narration to point out the history. We point out historical areas and historical buildings along the route, and just let everybody know about the history, because there is a lot of history
and
here.
That we almost lost it. You said that these tracks were almost taken from us.
When the copper operations ceased in Copper Hill, CSX abandoned the tracks. And one of the ideas was to make a rail to trail. That would involve pulling up all the tracks and just making it a hiking rail. Well, we at the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum knew that a lot more people could enjoy this scenery if we kept the rails down.
You know that people's time is precious, but also they want to savor every minute that they're here. So you have a short loop that's about 4 hours long?
Yes, ma'am.
Then that you mentioned Copper a couple of times.
Copper Hill, that's
go
our
into
big
Copper
trip,
Hill,
where we go all the way from Delano to Copper Hill, right on the Georgia-Tennessee line, and come back. It generally takes about 8 hours.
Do you ever get tired of feeling like you are living history every day?
No, but I learned it from the best.
Well, every single one of us who is here today has been saying we can't wait to get our ticket to ride. Again, we are in the adult section, but let's go downstairs and check in with Josh, because for all of you out there with kids and grandchildren, you're going to want to see and hear from him. so we have come downstairs, so to speak, and we are in the passenger car, one of the passenger cars. This is Josh Monroe, who you're a trainman here with the
Yes.
railroad, but you are also a teacher. You have been, up until recently, a chemistry teacher in town. So your love of teaching people what you know runs through to your job here.
Yes, I tell people that I traded my classroom in for one that has wheels and a 2,000 horsepower engine.
Well, that classroom is the right word, because when you are a passenger on the train, and the section where we are now, Josh, is where families can come. And the
Yes.
Algonquin, where Robert and I were talking, that's adult only. But down here, you get to hear a lot of little ones
Yes.
talking and getting excited about what they see. So when you're giving the history and the narration, it's very important to the experience.
Definitely, because we've got so many different things going on outside. We've got 3 ghost towns that we travel through. There's no buildings left, but we do go through the sites, and we talk about the history of the sites. We go through one town that is still there, Reliance, Tennessee, and talk about its history with logging and farming. And we go through the Appalachia Powerhouse and past the Appalachia Dam, which oddly enough, it's a hydroelectric plant, but the dam is 9 miles away from the generators.
Really?
Yes, the water has to go 9 miles through a pipe, which is actually large enough to put the train in. It's a very big
Wow.
pipe. And it also causes the water in the Hiwassee River to be very cold, because
That's why it's so cold.
yes, because it comes from the bottom of Lake Appalachia and then goes 9 miles through the mountains with no sunlight.
For anyone who's ever gone tubing, now you have your answer for why it's so cold.
Now you know.
So when you talk about the water, I mean, you do go along the river line, right? I mean, you get to
Yes.
see that. So your scenery changes with the seasons. So does the wildlife. You see everything on this train.
Yes, we have bald eagles, osprey. We've had some lucky people be able to see bears. I haven't got to see one yet.
Yeah, you're counting on that.
I'm counting on it, yes. Deer, the feral hogs. We've got a mother feral hog and her piglets up in the loop
Really?
in the bald spot that we've had several sightings of.
You know, it's funny, we think about in Chattanooga, we're the scenic city, right? So you think about our mountains being so beautiful, and they are. You can forget the difference in leaving the city behind and coming into, we're in the Cherokee National Forest.
Yes.
So it's a rare opportunity to cut through and really see raw nature out your window.
And there's no road access to about half the area that the train goes through, so you don't have people out there disturbing the wildlife. And so if the train is coasting downhill quite enough, we can sneak up on them.
The same is true for the plant life that you see, a lot of beautiful rhododendron and that type of thing.
Yes, rhododendron blooms in June. Before it is the mountain laurel. And then the spring ephemeral wildflowers start in about mid-April all the way through May, and they can put on a color show that rivals the fall colors.
Really?
Yes.
So you are the dad of 2 boys,
Yes.
9 and 13. Do they think you have the coolest job they ever saw?
Yes, they do.
When you're doing the narration, I guess you don't have the chance to really be in the cars to hear what people are saying, do you?
I do walk through the second half. I have a picture of the loop that I go from seat to seat and show everyone and explain
Okay.
why the loop doesn't turn the train, that it circles the mountain to climb the mountain.
Do you ever get tired of hearing the same comments? I'm sure you hear the same thing from the kids. I'm sure there aren't enough wows in the English language to capture it all.
No, there's not, because it changes with the seasons. Every weekend is different, and there's just so much to see. And I love watching the happy faces of the families and the kids.
Is everyone squished against the window?
Oh, definitely. Where else would you be?
Well, I can't thank you enough for letting us come on board.
You're welcome.
I think it is a great end of summer experience for people to have a chance to be a part of. Really, any season of the year, this is the place you want to be.
Even after the leaves fall, because then you have a clear view of the sights, and there's no wildlife hiding behind leaves because they're there.
Thank you so much for letting us come on board. And we're not through with the conversation, because this is kind of your idea of what you see when you're inside. But everybody dreams of having that coveted spot in the cab as the engineer. So we're going to take you inside the cab and talk with Dave Stoika, who is lucky enough to be the man who gets to push the whistle on the train when we come back. Thank you so much, Josh.
You're welcome.